Today I'm going to explain some of the red flags you need to be aware of during your sales process, whether it's freelancing as a micro business, when you're working as self-employed and you're trying to onboard a new client and you're in that sales process. These are some of the key things you need to watch out for before you get into a working relationship with a prospect. And this is particularly important if you're just starting out and you almost feel a little bit like you really need some projects to get going. You still need to be mindful of these things. You may be a little bit more flexible just to get some experience and get some credibility and testimonials and learn the process, but you still need to be aware of these things. So one of the first things, if they need everything urgently, and that can start in the sales process, I need this proposal in a 2 hours time. We need to have a call about this tomorrow morning. On late in an evening, they send these messages through, particularly if there's the word urgent. That's one of my little heuristics. If I see urgent in the subject line of an email, particularly if it's in capitals, that's going to be a consistent thing they're going to be doing throughout the process. Make your life an absolute nightmare, be very, very difficult to work with. So if you see the word urgent or start to get a pattern of urgent requests during that sales process, in reality, that's going to be like that throughout the working relationship, so you should probably put a stop to it straight away. The second one is if they don't ask you any questions. Of course, you're going to go through your sales process, your discovery or connect call, however you do it, and ask some questions about the prospect and the project, their target audience, all those types of things, and learn about how you can help them with whatever it is you're potentially going to be serving them with. But if they don't ask anything about you, your business, your background, your projects, anything like that, that's actually a bit of a concern, really. You may early doors think that's quite a good thing because it's nice and easy to complete the sale, but actually it's much better when they take an interest and understand you, because then you get to understand if you're a good fit of working together. They show an interest, and you can build a better working relationship when that happens. So if they don't ask you any questions, that's something to be aware of. The other thing as well is if they badmouth their previous provider of the service that you're looking to assist them with. So maybe if you're working on their website and they had a previous developer who they complain about, or you're helping out with their social media or their digital marketing and they're complaining about poor results from their previous provider. Now, it may well be the case, as with all these red flags, sometimes there are some outliers and actually it's not too bad. But generally, that can mean that they maybe have a negative attitude towards it. It might have been that that previous provider was perfectly capable, but they didn't lay out a good process, or the client had the wrong expectations, overestimated what they would receive in a short time period, those sorts of things. So it's important to dig deep into that, but it's definitely a bit of a red flag. And if they have multiple people they talk about in a negative way, you're probably going to want to avoid working with that prospect. The next thing is around discount requests. Now, it's not uncommon to get those, particularly if you're just starting out or it's in a difficult period, time of the year, etc., etc. It's not a surprise if a prospect asks for a discount. However, that should maybe come in the negotiation at the later process. If they're saying that from the first stages of speaking with you and saying little questions with a cheeky smile or what can you do for me at the early phases, you really want to avoid that, because you're getting into a situation where you're potentially going to be forced, like I say, particularly if you're early stage, you can get into a bit of a corner where you actually take on a project which is of little value to you in the end, and that's going to serve no one very well. You're going to be frustrated throughout it. This can also, there's a bit of a correlation I've seen between these discount requests and actually the payment terms and being good payers during the process. So if they start asking for a discount before you've even started talking about numbers, you really need to be mindful of that. And the final thing I think is important, and another thing that I made the mistake of actually signing up to with prospects in the early stages of being a freelancer, is if they really want to know exactly when you're working on their project. Now, of course, you might have timelines and deadlines and project schedules, but if they literally want to know the hour and the time of the day you're working on their project, at the end of the day, that really doesn't matter. They should be looking for the outcome, and good prospects understand that. They will trust you, let you do your thing, and expect the result by a certain deadline. But they shouldn't be asking exactly when are you working on and checking in on you all the time. Ultimately, you might have gone into self-employment to avoid that sort of thing from an employer. So if they're asking those sorts of questions, again, you need to ask yourself, is that the type of person I want to work with? So there's a few little pointers there you just want to be mindful of. Again, these aren't a hard and fast rule. It could be that one or two come up, and actually there's perfectly legitimate reasons for that with the prospect. But particularly if you see two or three of these in the early stages of negotiations, based on my experience, you really want to be questioning whether that's a project you should be taking on.